But
Okay, so I have a question. I
talk
don't
to
know
me.
if you've ever heard this before, but do you know who Brianna Chicken Fry is?
What?
All
No.
right. So Brianna Chicken Fry, she's a
Fuck?
barstool podcast host, social media influencer. She's pretty big on TikTok. She's on the BFS podcast with Dave Portnoy and Josh Richards. I think she has her own Plan Brie podcast as well.
Okay.
So her and her friend on her podcast were discussing this concept of, she brought the idea of, if like two people get into a relationship, but let's say they're not tens. Let's say they're 6, 7 on the scale of 1 through 10. You know, what do I call this? The attractive scale, I guess.
Mhm.
Well, no, that's not really works because everybody's attracted to somebody different. But
True.
the good looking scale, I don't know what to call it, but you know the scale, 1
Yeah,
through
yeah,
10. Rate the
Objectively,
guy,
sure.
rate the girl. Yeah. So she was talking about how like two people who are lower on the scale tend to have a better relationship throughout life than two people who are like 9 or 10s, dimes.
Mm.
And her idea was that because you weren't just going based off of looks, you had to get more into the personality if two people were meeting and starting a relationship who weren't quote unquote weren't as good looking. And if you were two people who are meeting who are just dimes, well then she was saying like, okay, he knows that she's hot, he knows that, or she knows that she's hot, he knows that he's good looking, and let's just get together and hook up. And that's kind of like how that relationship starts a lot of the time. So do you have any thoughts about that idea that she brought up?
Yeah, I think so first of all, like you said, attraction is subjective. So I
Right.
might find someone hot, you might not, vice versa. But typically, on an objective scale, we kind of know who the people on paper look good and the people on paper who don't look good. A lot of that has to do with like height and how in shape you are or whatever. But so
True.
if you're lower on that scale, first of all, I would say your options are limited. So they're more limited than somebody who's more above, right? Like a guy who's 6'4", 220, 5% body fat is going to have way more options than a guy who's 5'6", out of shape, hasn't gone to the gym in 3 years. So I think that's important.
Until you realize he might be dumb as rocks.
True, very true.
But he also might not be dumb as rocks, so you got to go with that too. But
Yeah.
like Kevin James, I think does pretty well.
Yeah, and Kevin Hart. He's not out of shape, but he's a small guy, but he's doing pretty well.
So he uses his comedy.
Mm-hmm.
You got to use what you got to use with what you're good with to
Yep.
lead the way.
Yeah, but also I think in her explanation, two people who are attractive, they probably have bigger egos than two people who aren't. So I think what ends up happening is when you're attracted, you have a lot of options for most of your life, or at least for as long as you've been attractive. Maybe not your whole life, but for as long as you've been attractive, you've always had options. And so what happens is when you pair with this person, I feel like there's this subtle battle of ego, kinda. And I think I don't know, it's weird. I think like both people know they're both hot and they both know they both have options. And there's kind of like this tension, whereas two people who are lower on the scale, quote unquote, they both know neither one has that many options. So they kind of enjoy each other more and appreciate each other more.
Okay, yeah.
That's my thinking behind it. I don't know.
And those
if
two
that's
people
accurate.
that have more options, they probably feel like, okay, whenever there's the first sign of any like struggle within the relationship, they know they have options, so they're like probably quicker to bounce instead of like fighting through and getting through the battles that they're having. They're probably just like, oh, I can leave you and I can go get another dime tomorrow type thing.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and then, but then at that point you pretty much start all over, and then you get into this cycle of just like you have the mindset of thinking the grass is greener on the other side, and it's not always greener on the other side, but you don't think that
Facts.
way.
Right.
But you should have the mindset of, if the grass is greener on the other side, I'm going to just water my grass more and it's going to become greener on my side. But I don't think a lot of people think that way.
No,
Like they got to work on their own struggles and their own problems and work through the messes and the battles. But yeah, it's she brought it up. I listened to it and thought it was a pretty good explanation. And